On today's episode, I sit down with boxer Cam F. Awesome, and he surprisingly shares how boxing was never really his thing. But winning? That was a different story. Cam stepped into the ring as a kid just trying to defend himself from bullies, but he walked out a 12-time national heavyweight champion. Now he's traded punches for punchlines as a comedian and motivational speaker, helping athletes break out of the just an athlete mindset. Because, as Cam puts it, you can't box forever. From his risk for reward mentality to why he doesn't even watch boxing, Cam brings his signature humor and raw honesty to this candid conversation. So let's get into it. Without further ado, here is my conversation with the one and only Cam F. Awesome.
Well, welcome to Candid Conversations. Thank you so much for being here. We have Cam F. Awesome. Cam, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah.
Super excited to have you here. I love your story and can't wait for listeners to hear it. So I always like to start off with guests just introducing themselves. So please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
My name is Cam F. Awesome. Former boxer, athlete, turned post-life athlete, and I'm a speaker now, and live in Austin, and I'm building a business and a life for myself after sports, which has been a fun challenge to navigate.
I like that positive spin. Yes, a fun challenge. I see that you have memorabilia behind you. You are a retired professional athlete, but you are an amazing boxer. Can you tell people how you got into boxing?
Yeah, funny enough, I got into boxing to deal with bullying. Bullying for me started, and it not like cyber or verbal, which I'm not throwing shade at. Those are real legit. Everyone wants the problems they don't have, is what I'm saying. But I dealt with physical bullying. Uh, I had in fourth grade, I had my head slammed into a brick wall, and I was sent to the hospital with a concussion. And my school's solution was to release me 10 minutes early so I could get home before my bully got to me. And that created, I didn't know there was a word for anxiety. I just knew I was afraid. I didn't use the bathroom in school because if I was in the bathroom and somebody else was in the bathroom, they might beat me up. So when I got to middle school, I was volunteering in the nurse's office during my lunch hour because I was afraid to be. I was just always afraid to be around a lot of people. I didn't know there was a word for it. I just didn't know why. I was like, something bad might happen. But if I was always on edge, I would be prepared for that bad thing that was going to happen that I didn't know when or what was going to happen. That's how young me would explain what was going in my mind constantly. Uh, and in high school, I got into an altercation with a girl, but the way it was said, I got beat up by a girl. And I thought, it's like, okay, I need to make a change in my life. And I decided to join the boxing gym, which happened to be the only free gym in the neighborhood. And I just wanted to do the workout because if I looked like a boxer, people would likely leave me alone. And I thought if I had a tough looking exterior, I would be safer. And I joined the boxing gym to lose weight and I just want to look like the boxers. And I got in such good shape because I was going consistently. I lost all the weight, and my coach was like, "Hey, you've gotten so good, you should get in the ring and spar." And I was like, "Oh, no, thanks. My mom's not going to let me." Because like they knew I was going to the boxing gym, but they didn't want me to be a boxer. My dad said I wouldn't be a good boxer because I had weak wrist. That was uh, and I get it. I came home from school saying I was going to be a boxer. The guy who just got beat up by a girl. So it's like they, I wasn't the boxer in anyone's mind, but no one at the boxing gym knew who I was. So they were just like, "Yeah, get in the ring and spar." And I remember my first sparring session. I was so afraid because I've never dealt with any altercation or played any team sports or anything.
And
So
how
it,
old are you at this point?
16. And I was so afraid. I ran from my opponent the entire time. I was just like moving around. And I did so much moving that I burned more calories in those few rounds of sparring than I did anything else. Because the fear of someone in front of me kept me moving. And I started sparring all the time. And everyone in the gym loved to spar me because I was a big guy, so you can hit me as hard as you want. And I wasn't necessarily throwing punches back. I was doing a lot of moving.
Where were they
So
hitting?
they wouldn't. That's why I was really good at not getting hit, because I was just ducking and I was moving around so much, and it was an awkward movement, but I was timing their punches. And naturally, from avoiding getting hit, it made me become a good boxer.
Wow.
So everyone in the gym wanted to spar me because it was everyone won. They could hit me as hard as they want, but they would never land a punch. And I got so good at defense because it's all I worked on every day. And I was just doing it to lose the weight. And I started to look like the boxer. This was 11th grade, senior year of high school. My parents moved from New York to Florida.
Big adjustment.
And big adjustment. But I realized in at the boxing gym, I was this like super confident person because everyone knew me and loved me as the guy who sparred. But the second I went back into school, I reverted into that unconfident, anxious person. And weirdly, the safest place I felt was at the boxing gym because everyone thought I was cool there. When I got to Florida, I realized I could just pretend to be whoever I want. I don't have other people's expectations on me. So I just pretended to be like this really cool, outgoing person. And it worked. Problem I had was my boxing gym was 6 miles away from my high school. So I had a 6 mile walk if I wanted to box, which I did, I just had to walk 6 miles. And now it sounds crazy, but I had nothing else to do. And I was like, I wanted to be a boxer. And if the only thing in my way to being a boxer is 6 miles, I'm not going to let that stop. That was my rational. So I would walk for 3 hours. And this is before iPods. So
Walkmans?
I could afford it. So they were so expensive back then. So I would just make up stories in my head. And I don't know, I didn't do it on purpose, but at some point I started making up these stories about how much of a badass I am. And like I had all the money, all the cars, I was knocking everyone out. Everyone was afraid of me. I was the best boxer ever. And I would just tell myself that for 3 hours. And the better I spoke to myself, the better I did at the gym. And the better I did at the gym, the more excited I was to walk 3 hours and do it again. And it created this cycle. And after about 4 or 5 months, I became really good at boxing because I started to become all the things that I was saying to myself.
You were manifesting and didn't even know it.
No clue. But the crazy thing is, I was a super confident, cocky person. I was winning all my boxing matches in my senior year of high school. I got the opportunity to go back to my old school for a couple weeks to graduate from my old high school.
In New York?
And in New York.
Ooh.
And I was because I was buff now. I was excited. Oh, I couldn't wait.
You're the man.
I'm the man. I couldn't wait for them to see how cool I've become. And the second I walked through those doors, reverted right back into the unconfident, anxious person. I didn't understand it, but I thought there was like a force field around New York that was bad for me. And I didn't return to New York unless it was for a boxing match for over 10 years.
Wow.
And these are things I'm putting together later on in life. But I couldn't wait to, after graduation, I went back down to Florida where I was cool again. And I rode that confidence train within 2 years. I qualified for the 2008 Olympic trials. I lost, but
I want to get into that, but keep going.
But in 2 years, I went from being this like unconfident, anxious person to like being one of the top boxers in the country. And it was just because I thought I believed it. Like I accidentally spoke it into existence and I was just doing what I was already doing. And I had a thought, like after everyone lost in the Olympics, everyone either quits or turn pro because that's where the money is. But I was like, if everyone who lost leaves, aren't I automatically the best?
a good way that to put it. Yeah.
Think about it. Anytime you've ever failed at something, you now have experience on your side, which means the next time you do it, it's going to be easier. So everyone turned pro, and in 2008, so at 2008 Nationals, like a few months later, I was the big dog. It was just no other dogs. I was just the only dog that was there from before. And
By
I started
default, you're big dog by default.
big dog by default. And I started to walk around like big dog. And I ended up winning nationals in 2008. And I realized it was the point system. So here's how it works. If you hit me, you get a point. If I hit you, I get a point. So what I did was I was so good at dodging punches, I would just run from a guy until he got tired. And then I would punch him a few times because it doesn't matter how hard I hit you. I just need to land with the knuckles. So I mastered the scoring system, and it was more like fencing to me instead of boxing. And because no one ever boxed like that, it was very easy for me to win. So like I dominated in the US. I won nationals in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. I would still win a lot of fights internationally, but I would lose internationally. But in the US, I just dominated. And 2012, I won the Olympic trials to represent the US in the London Olympics. And then I got kicked off the Olympic team for not sending in my drug testing paperwork.
Oh.
And I got suspended and kicked off the team for a year.
What happened there with the forgetting? Just busy, or what happened?
So it wasn't even a real offense at the time. No one had gotten in trouble for it before. But it was a few months after Lance Armstrong went on Oprah. And the drug testing agency cracked down. So when they showed up to drug test me and I wasn't there, missed drug test, a positive drug test, I was actually in Azerbaijan fighting in a tournament. You get drug tested to fight in, but I forgot to send an email that I was leaving. And honestly, I've never really sent the emails. I just always got lucky. But while I was on the Olympic team, and it wasn't that I was hiding anything, but it was just dumb. 19 years old, not caring about the small details of things in life because I didn't see it as that important, and it wasn't at the time. After I returned to boxing, I became the athlete rep on the drug testing's board to speak on behalf of the athletes to make sure it doesn't happen to them. Because I think it was BS, but during the time, I couldn't articulate that. I just knew I was heartbroken.
Yeah. So how did they notify you?
They notify you by a written letter. Like they send a letter to your house. The address I use, because I didn't really live anywhere, because as an athlete, like we made $1,000 a month. I gave my sponsor's address, Ringside, the boxing equipment company. Mm-hmm. So when they would show up to drug test me, that's where I would be anyway, because I worked there. But when they would show up there at night, I'm not there. And also, they mailed letters. I don't live there, so I'm never checking my mail. 19-year-olds don't think about checking mail.
What?
Yeah. And I screwed up, and it sucked because I put all my eggs in this basket. Like, there was no college, there was no certifications, no degrees. I have no skills. I'm nothing but an athlete. And the only thing that I can do was taken from me. And I realized I'm still very resentful. And I was mad. I thought boxing as a woman, like she left me, like she cheated on me. And a boxer I beat 6 times out of 6 matches took my spot in the Olympics.
But you got the letter. Did the company call you, or did you go in and then they said, "Oh, we have a piece of mail for you"? How did you?
How they initially told me, how I had the news broken to me?
Yes.
I showed up to a boxing match to fight, and they're like, "You're suspended." And I was like, "I don't think so." And that's how we put it, because I don't go to check the mail, so I didn't know. I didn't know they showed up to test me. I didn't know that they sent letters to say I was suspended. I was still traveling and fighting. And I was stationed in LA at the time. I was never homeless, but I just lived in different places. And there's a boxing program that allowed me to live there and work, spar with their fighters in Torrance, California. And after I got suspended, they were the first people to call me. They said, "Hey, we found out. Don't bother coming back. Let us know where to mail your stuff."
Those words, "Don't bother coming back."
Don't bother coming back.
That is so harsh.
So not only because the reason why they had me in their program is they wanted to create the number one boxer in the country, heavyweight boxer. That was me. They were looking to beat me, but because I'm that cocky, I show up to their program and spar with their fighters to make them better because they're willing to pay me because those guys would never ever beat me. Uh, so not only did I get suspended, I found out I'm homeless.
Oh my
It's like
God.
the boxing gym's my address, but there's no bed there.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
so I slept on my buddy's couch for a while until I can kind of figure things out. I started doing boxing fitness training. I started posting Craigslist ad because this boxing company that sponsored me, they have a gym for photo shoots for their products. So I asked them if they'd let me train people out of their photo shoot gym, and they said sure. And on Craigslist, I'd find 4 people to train them, $25 an hour. You get to train with the number one heavyweight in the country. 4 people in an hour, and I would try to do a couple people a day. So it was making $100 an hour. So I found a way to make quick cash, and that's how I got on my feet and got an apartment. Uh, but then I realized I have no other skills than fighting. I have to go back to boxing, as resentful as I am. And I realized I did it wrong. I started boxing, and when boxing left and it broke in half, boxing got the bigger piece. I want to return to boxing, but this time no longer as an athlete. I think it's detrimental for someone to identify as an athlete.
Why?
Because once your sport is gone, you are gone too. That's what I realized in 2012.
Yeah. And then you have, if you do identify, then it's kind of like, then what am I? And then that sends you down a whole nother path.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when I went back, I said, okay, this time I'm going back to boxing, but I'm doing it as not an athlete, but an entertainer. And I'm going to do everything to leverage myself to have a life for myself for after sports. So first thing I did, legally changed my last name to Awesome. Couple reasons. When I got suspended, I read the comments. You shouldn't read the comments.
Where were the comments?
Oh, under any article about me or the drug testing situation. And in the boxing community, so I was cocky. The pendulum had swung. Okay. I get it. I was cocky. I used to box in a pink skirt because I thought it'd be funny to beat up a man in front of his kids in a pink skirt. I would flip into the ring. I'd do dances. I wore capes. I own more capes than an adult should. So, because I had fun, my whole thing with boxing is I understood the scoring system. So I never felt in danger. It never felt like a fight. It was like, I'm just going to go win. I was never nervous because I understood the scoring system. And I was afraid to get knocked out. That was my actual fear. And it wasn't the pain because I don't think it hurts. I've never been knocked out. My fear was the humiliation. I was so afraid because I was always afraid in that lunchroom as a kid because if I got beat up, it wasn't the punch. I wasn't afraid to be hurt physically. I realized I was afraid to be humiliated in front of all those people in the lunchroom. So then I find myself in a career where I'm literally in a ring in the center of an arena and everyone's watching me. And my fear is not, I don't worry about getting hurt. I don't think it hurts. There's no pain. There's no physical pain. What I'm afraid of is my ego being humiliated, being laughed at, getting knocked out, or getting posterized, being my opponent's profile picture, being turned into a GIF where you're knocked out over and over and over. These are the things that played in my head. So the reason why I walk 6 miles to the gym is because I'm not getting tired. Because if I get tired, I'll get humiliated. And nothing motivates me like physical consequences or fear.
Wow. So initial trauma from your childhood, from the lunchroom and all of that, was a huge motivator for how good you were in the ring. So you're doing all this moving around. From my perspective, it sounds like you're protecting your brain. So
Yes.
were you ever hit in the head where you could feel like you were concussed or dinged or bell rung, they all mean concussion, but has that ever happened
Uh,
to you?
uh, why would you ever think about that?
If
That's my thought process back then.
Okay.
Why would I think about that? Because, and also the fights, you can watch all my videos. I don't really get hit in my fights. The sparring, that's where things happen. That's where I take risks. That's where I try new things. I don't try it out at fight. I try it out at fight after I mastered it in sparring. But in sparring, like if I'm trying a new uppercut or something, and a few times I get clocked trying that, I much rather get clocked in the gym and hurt in the gym than embarrassed in front of the lights. So when you ask about the fights, no, I don't get hit at all in the fights.
Okay.
It's the sparring that no one sees. And
Oh,
you'll train for 3 months. You'd spar 1,000 rounds to prepare for a 12-round fight. No one thinks about those 1,000 rounds of sparring and the damage. And when it's time to spar, if I'm preparing for a fight, I'm fighting someone good, I'm finding people better than the guy I'm fighting to bring in to spar me to prepare for that fight.
huh. Which other people have in turn used you for?
Yes, we're using each other. But the thing is, I'm sparring somebody very good every single day or 3, 4 times a week. That's where the damage occurs. So, in hindsight, have I taken some shots? Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Would I do it again? Hell yes. 100%. Because what we like, and so I was very for, because I was the athlete rep for the Olympic boxing, because I want to speak on behalf of the athletes, uh, where we had the issue of the headgear being on or off. I fought to get the headgear off.
Because
Uh, First of all, I'm a southpaw. So my only 3 boxing injuries are 3 headbutts.
Ooh.
Only injuries from boxing is those 3 headbutts. And they happen because there was no headgear. That's the consequence. But it looks so good in pictures.
Oh my gosh, Cam.
But here's the thing, the reason why I'm boxing is to build a life for myself for after sports. So when I realize I'm an entertainer, that's a big part of it. It's entertainment. That's what boxing is. Football is entertainment. I want to see a quarterback get taken out. Like back in 2006, like NFL Blitz, that's how I grew up. It's like the fact that you can't hit a quarterback too hard. I'm like, why? Like, that's what I want to see. That's like asking NASCAR to have a speed limit. The reason why I box is there's a risk. And because there's a risk, there's a reward for it. I don't want to watch flag football.
It is growing in popularity, Cam.
It is, and I love that. And the thing is, I wouldn't let my kid play football.
Would you let them box?
Oh, actually, I take that back. I take that back. Uh, I I wouldn't put my kid. I wouldn't encourage my kid to play football. I would say that.
Why?
Risk for reward. I don't really see it as because I don't think college is going to be a thing if that kid ever does exist. I don't have kids, but I use them as an excuse all the time. You're like, hey, do you have time? Yeah, I don't have my kids this weekend. I don't even have kids, but it's something I say. I don't the risk for it because moms won't put their kid in a boxing ring, but put the kid in a football field just because there's a chance he might get a scholarship. So it's a risk. Like I don't want them to. What I'm saying is I don't want them to remove that risk because I was not going to I make a good career for myself because I took those punches. I wouldn't have got what I have now because I'm not going to college. I'm not that guy. If this was an avenue for me to have success, I want that avenue there. There's risk in it, yes. I don't think we should take the risk away. You take the risk away, you take the reward away.
So, how much information or education did you get about the risks before you got into the ring, if any?
Oh, I just got to look around because you get to see the older, more experienced boxers, and you're like, you can tell is they talking like they got a little like a heavy tongue, and it's like when they're like punch drunk, and the only person who doesn't know there's a punch drunk person in the room happens to be punch drunk. I've seen these dudes, and I was just like, oh, I don't want to. My whole thing is I don't want to get hit. Like I don't want to take any damage. And I'm gonna get flack for this. I judge a boxer's success by the life they lead after they retire.
Okay.
If you have all the championship belts and you won all the money, but you can't finish a sentence, did you win?
But that's part of the whole risk piece. And for our listeners, when Cam is describing punch drunk, that is essentially the early description for CTE. We are just learning that now with research. But the description that you are giving is accurate with like the heavy tongue. And tell me more about what you see in boxers post.
I I see, and here's the thing about boxing is like literally, it's like sports are to get you out the hood. This is that's everything comes with the risk. And there's a lot of people who may have not been that educated in the first place who get in it, so you don't want to judge it by that. But I see a lot of fighters who've taken too much damage in their career. And I always looked at them and thought, oh, I don't want to be you. I don't want to have to fight.
To
So when
survive.
I to survive, because you're literally fighting for your life. So when I returned to boxing, my whole thing was to market myself. Like if I fought in San Francisco on Saturday, I'm reaching out to comedy clubs because I started doing stand-up comedy. I'm like, I can do a show Thursday night and Friday night. I then reach out to schools and I speak at schools Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I fight Saturday and then I leave. Like I started doing more than just fighting because I wanted to be more than an athlete. Then I started speaking at schools and talking about bullying and confidence because that's why I got involved in boxing in the first place.
Where
And
did that pivot come from? Because that is a giant step to the left to go from the best boxer in the country to now you are doing stand-up comedy and then also adding a different pivot to go into the schools.
yeah, here's how it happened. When I got involved in boxing and I like lost weight and I sparred, I realized like, oh, I understand the point system. No one else is. I interviewed the judges, is what I'm saying. Like, because I'm like, what are you looking for? And the number one thing they all said was snapping punches. So what guys would do is they're throwing hard and slow. I'm just touching, snapping and collecting points. Once I realized that, I was like, oh, I can just win easily. And this was in 2008, and I thought, like the interview they give you, like you have to fill out this form before your fight in the finals and nationals. It's like your height, your weight, your reach, hometown. The final question was, what are your goals outside of the ring? And it's still there to this day, so you can look it up. It was to be a good role model and to host my own TV show. Like I wanted to be a performer. I just boxed because it helped with me lose weight and I got abs. And it was a way better route than college. But after I got to spend in 2012, I realized I was doing all this boxing because I thought if I became good enough of a boxer, I'd get my own reality TV show. Everyone was getting their own shows back then. So it was like logical. I thought I was like entertaining enough to have my own show. But when I got suspended, I realized I had no longer had boxing and I'd never performed. So I started going to open mics at comedy clubs because I was like, I'll do stand-up comedy because I love performing. And I so take it all the way back. After I won my first national championship in 2008, a guy called me up from middle of nowhere and he's like, hey, I saw you fight at nationals.
Where was nationals that year?
That was in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center.
Okay.
And he called me up and he said, hey, I saw you fight. I'd love for you to come to my gym and spar with my fighter. And I went out there and I went out there for a month and I sparred. I was working at Waffle House. So I lost my job at Waffle House because they weren't giving me the time off. So I went to Kansas City. I got to work at Ringside, the boxing equipment company. So he let me work off the books, make some cash because I was broke. And then the evenings I sparred with his fighters. And after the month, I went back to Florida where I was living at the time, and he found out I lost my job. He says, hey, if you want to move to Kansas City, I'll give you a job. I'll buy you a car. I'll let you live in my house for free for a year, and then you have to move out. And you have to, in exchange, I have to go to all of the high schools and middle schools in the area, in the inner city area, talk to them about boxing and what it does for me, and convince them to join his nonprofit boxing gym.
Wow.
deal of a lifetime. So I agreed to do that, and I would go to schools and I would drag in boxing gloves and like have do a little boxing tutorial with the kids. I would take over the gym class for the entire day, but it would take from 7:15 in the morning to like 3 p.m. I'd be there all day, and I started doing these open mics because
In
I wanted to
In
in,
Kansas.
in Kansas City during my year off. And I was speaking because I had time. I started speaking at these schools because that's what my agreement was with my coach. And I would always do that. And I realized, oh, I can do the last 5 minutes and try out my jokes there. And I could do that 7 times in a day. So I was like, oh, my new open mic. And students like the last 5 minutes more than like the entire boxing thing. And I realized, oh, if I could just talk for 45 minutes, I don't have to do the dog and pony show with the gloves, because having middle school kids with gloves on punching each other, it's a lot to deal with. So I started speaking for the whole 45 minutes, and my stand up started getting really good because all of my jokes had morals and messages attached. But if I was going to talk about cyberbullying, I'd have a joke and it'll be a build up and there's a point. And I would always write new jokes and materials for these schools. And I was doing them for free. I didn't ever think it was a career. And I was like, oh, if I can, I'm good enough to where I can do the whole school at once. So to fulfill my coach's obligation, I started doing school-wide assemblies. Instead of spending an entire week at one school, I could do an entire school in 45 minutes. And I was doing that at the same time I was doing stand-up comedy, and I was returning back to boxing. And I returned back to boxing. I reclaimed my spot as captain of the national team in 2013. I won nationals every year. Then 2016, won the Olympic trials. That's documented in the Netflix documentary Counterpunch, if you want to learn more about that.
Make sure you go
Uh,
and watch Counterpunch on Netflix, everybody. But give
yeah,
me a run of the timeline. We're hopping around a little bit, which is totally
yeah,
fine. But got into boxing, and then in 2008 is when you were
yeah.
suspended.
No, 2008. 2008, I won nationals for the
You
first
won
time,
nationals.
and then I moved to Kansas City because John Brown reached out to me.
Okay.
And he asked me what I needed to win. And I said, the only reason why I haven't won more is I can't afford to get to the boxing matches. And he has funding. And he's like, if I can afford to pay, he's like, you'll win. I was like, yes. And I just started going to every single tournament because he was paying my way. And I didn't have the stress of finances. I didn't get any money out of it, but at least I didn't have any pay any bills. And I got a lot of experience because I was fighting so much. The average boxer has about 50 fights at most. I had about 150 just going around doing this with John Brown. And I was racking up a lot of wins and I was getting a lot of confidence. I was doing a lot of sparring uh, because that's what prepared me best, which was probably the most dangerous thing for your brain. But that's how I prepared best for fights, is my movement with sparring and getting all my timing down. So 2008, won nationals every year till 2012. 2012, I get suspended and kicked off the team. Uh, I stay in Kansas City, and I devise a plan to have a life for after sports. And so I won nationals every year from 2013 to 2016, won the Olympic trials, and then lost in international competition, didn't get to go to the games. Uh, that was heartbreaking, but at least it was on me. I lost in the finals on a split decision against Colombia and Argentina.
Oh,
If they would have announced me the winner, he couldn't have complained. It was that close of a fight. So it is what it is. I can take a loss. Don't like them, but it is what it is. When I returned back to the US, and and it sounds silly, I was so embarrassed that I didn't go to the Olympic. Like, I lost in the Olympic qualifiers. Because like it was this whole bit. I didn't go in 2012. So like the news is like doing stories on me. Like everyone's like rooting for me. And I was so embarrassed to show my face in Kansas City. And I had no career, and I was like, I don't want to box anymore. I never really liked boxing in the first place. I just like winning, if that makes sense.
and you're really good at it.
And I'm really good at it. I don't watch boxing. I don't know what's going on. It's not my thing.
Cam, you don't watch?
No, if my friend is fighting, I'd go and support, but I don't just watch boxing. It's not, yeah. Uh, It's never really been my thing, but I enjoy it.
And you're this awesome boxer.
So I returned back to Kansas City and I realized I didn't like running into people. And I was like, okay, I joined I joined actually a year before I did a joke on stage about speaking at a school, at a comedy club. And someone after me came up and was like, hey, do you speak at schools? How much do you charge? And I was like, oh, you don't make a living doing that. And he's like, yeah, you do. And he gave me his card. He was a part of the National Speakers Association. And once I returned after losing Olympic trials, I just went to their national conference because it happened to be the same week I returned back to the US after losing. It was before the actual Olympics started. That's how I jumped right back into it because I knew if I were to spend any time at home, I would slide into a depression. And like, know yourself. So I was like, all right, I got to get straight to work. So I went straight to the National Speaker Association. I didn't learn it. Great conference if you know what you're doing, but I knew nothing about speaking. I just did school assemblies and I was in over my head. I realized schools are the only thing I understand. So I need to make a living for myself. And I enjoy speaking at school. So I decided to hop in my Prius. I planned out a 51-day tour, speaking tour, starting on April 1st. And I was going to drive around the country for 51 days speaking at schools around the country. Because I thought if in boxing, the more fights I had, the better I was. In speaking, I'm like, the more places I speak, the better I'll be. And if I drive around and sleep in my car, I can save a lot of money and not charge a lot. So a lot of schools will book me. And it'll be uncomfortable, but I mean, I wanted to build my speaking career like a rapper would build his career because that's all I knew. Like I knew rap music and I knew how rappers got on. Here's how rappers get on. You make mixtapes in your house, right? You hand out your mixtapes for free. That was me going around the school speaking for free. Then you start putting more money into your production. I started leaving the gyms and I started doing school assemblies. Then I would add slides and there was audio and I was building up my production. Then this is the important part. You got to leave town. You have to leave town if you won't look, and don't be mad at anyone for it because there's a lot of people who are like, no one in my city is supporting me. And I'm like, no, it's not that. Let's say, I don't even know what you do, but let's say there's a huge budget to bring an athlete in or bring someone in. Are you going to bring the person from down the block that you could get anytime? Or are you going to get the same exact caliber of person, but from out of town because it's shinier? It would bother me when the schools I would speak at for free would refuse to pay me, but would get speakers from out of town to come in. I know they pay them. And then I realized, oh, that sucks, but there are more places I'm not from than where I'm from.
Listen to these gyms, people.
So I was like, okay, I just have to leave town. And that's why I hopped in my Prius because no one in Kansas City would pay me to speak. I'd have to leave. I had to go on my Prius. And 3 hours into my 51-day road trip, I totaled my Prius.
3 hours?
I made it from Kansas City to Springfield, Missouri, and totaled my car. And I was screwed because I already accepted the deposits for a lot of these schools. And I used the deposit to like get an oil change in my car and get everything done and get a laptop. And because I had nothing.
Oh my
God. And I was like in the ditch and I was like, I can't go back home because.
Was it another car? Or what was
No, I hit a sheet of ice. I hit a sheet of ice, hit 2 medians, and then crashed into a tree. My car is totaled.
How were you? I mean, besides devastated.
Oh, I couldn't stop doing math. I was in panic mode. I'm like, how much money do I have? Can I get enough? So I had enough money to rent a car for 1 day. And I was like, I'll just not go see this car again. Yeah. It was so immediately going into solution mode. I rent the car for the 1 day and because it took a lot of time to get the car towed and everything. I left April 1st. I was speaking April 2nd, the morning of April 2nd. So I had to drive through the night and to Florida, got to the school, brushed my teeth in the parking lot, slept for about an hour and a half before kids started getting to school, and did my first talk. Got the other 50% payment. Got that deposited and realized that's going to take 2 to 3 business days before I can see that. So I had to like survive. So I had to drive back further down to Florida. Now, every time I swipe my card for gas, it's an extra $35 because I'm in overdraft fee mode.
Oh,
I'm drowning while I keep going. So I'm like, okay, so I just start reaching out to book more schools and I just start adding whatever you got, I'm speaking for as I'm just traveling around the country. And I make it to San Diego, from Florida to San Diego in a path,
driving.
driving. And eventually I reached out to the rental car company and they were cool. They were like, just as long as you have a card on it when you bring the car back in. So I didn't get in any trouble for it. But I got to San Diego and my friend was like, well, you totaled your Prius and you're going to get insurance money. You should buy a van and live down by the river. And I didn't know what that meant either. It's like a Saturday Night Live sketch with Chris Farley, where he's a motivational speaker who
Yes.
lives in a van down by the river.
Down by the river.
Yeah, I didn't know people could live in vans. I was in my Prius. So I bought a van and I lived in my van for 3 years.
How? How would you bathe and bathroom and all the things?
So I had a Planet Fitness membership, not to brag, but it was a black card, $15 a month. I could use any facility. So I would shower at Planet Fitness. I had a little folding desk that I would have in my van and a lawn chair in my van. And I would bring that into the tanning booth at Planet Fitness. And that was my work office where I would try to book more schools.
And use their Wi-Fi.
Use their Wi-Fi, and I would sleep in Walmart. So you can sleep for free at any 24-hour Walmart.
Where? In the parking
Anywhere
lot?
around the country. Yeah, oh yeah, you park your van in the parking lot. Anyone in the country, you can sleep for free.
At Walmart parking lots.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh, this is such an incredible story of like perseverance and success. And it's like
Yeah.
while you're drowning, you keep going. That is so inspirational.
So that and I just want to make it clear, I lost so much money on that tour. That 51-day tour, I lost.
Really?
Well, because the rent, I didn't add in cost. First of all, I didn't add in estimates. I never did this before. So I should have maybe planned a 3-day tour or something, but I did 51. Like I just kept finding schools to book more and more. So I just kept going, but I didn't account for paying for a rental. And when you book a car the day of with a debit card, it's more expensive.
Mm.
So I'm like, I think I paid thousands of dollars for that rental by the time it was over. And yeah, it was a rough 51 days.
It sounds like it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What a journey. Whew, oh my gosh. Well, um, can you tell me like what is the transition from that? Because listeners, if you go and follow Cam's page, and we'll make sure you get his handle, you will see how these crowds of students go crazy when he is there. He does this awesome shot where he pans from left to right, and the kids just go wild. So how do you go from where you're losing your shirt on a 51-day tour to being just like the man at these schools and kids going wild for you?
Oh, I brushed my teeth in the parking lot of the school, did the assembly, and then did that video. You can't let your feelings get in the way of the goal. I know everyone's like, feel your feelings. Nah, shove that down. If there's a goal at hand, I don't care about you. No one cares about your feelings. So I would go slap a smile on my face, do my assembly with 100% enthusiasm. But the things ironically enough, I'm speaking about resilience, the capacity to recover from difficulties. I'm speaking about that on a tour. I totaled my car 3 hours into it. So it's like, I have to keep going.
Yeah. You're practicing what you preach. So during these talks, initially you were describing how you had the boxing gloves and things like that. I'm sure that kids have questions about being in the ring and all of that. I have a very specific question. What does it feel like to get hit?
Oh, so I never thought about that until I was watching an altercation at a Hooters in Orlando, Florida. I was there for a boxing match, but the guy was with my coach was he's like a pretty big guy, MMA fighter. He can really fight. He got into altercation with a smaller dude, and the dude got in his face, and my coach was like, "Yo, I'll knock you out." And the dude said, "I've been knocked out before. Doesn't hurt." I've never been so afraid of a human being in my life. But secondly, he's spot on. It doesn't hurt. It
Okay.
doesn't feel like anything. You body shots, yes, that hurts. But your head, you just kind of you don't feel anything. It happens in such you close your eyes, you open it, nothing, it doesn't really feel like anything.
So, is there any reaction? Like you may not feel it, but do you see stars? Do you stumble?
Oh, so when you stumble, and this is a misconception, people think they stumble because you're drunk or something. It's like, no, when you get hit, you feel nothing. So you go numb. So like if your feet has ever gone to sleep and you like stumble around because you can't feel where your feet are, that's what happens when you get hit with a shot. Your body goes numb. You don't feel anything. So you don't know where your feet is to push down. And that's why you stumble over.
Ah, equilibrium is off balance. Huh.
I'm
Okay.
not a doctor.
How do you recover from that so quickly? Because you take a shot and then you gotta get right back in and engage.
Oh, sometimes you get hit with that shot. You purposely do not take a step. If I get hit with like a shot, I stand there in the pocket for a second because I want to make sure I can feel my legs before I take a step. Because if my opponent sees I stumble and I don't have my feet under me, I can't throw a hard shot back. He's in no danger. He could tee off on me.
Mm, okay.
So I don't ever want my opponent to know I'm hurt.
Is that a skill that you have to learn? Because I feel, if someone steps on my toe, I'm like, oh my gosh, diva down. And you're taking
Diva down.
diva down, please check the pedicure. Did you chip my nail color? Is that something that is trained and taught to like hold your ground and don't let them see you stumble?
Yeah, it comes with experience, and you learn this with being in the ring with those guys who took too many punches. They have these old pro experience moves, so you'll learn how to, if you get hit with a shot, hold a guy, but then hold him on the side that the referee is not standing on, so the ref doesn't see it. So you can kind of put your weight on him and hold your feet up. It's
Oh,
like these are little small things that you wouldn't understand from the outside if you're not boxing, but in the inside, and these it's a chess game of these little small things.
interesting. See, I'm like, I know they're not hugging, but they're definitely embracing. Okay. Small, quick question, which wasn't even on the docket here, but I do watch boxing on occasion. What is the either cream or salve that they put on a cut, and then what is the metal object that they like use to go over the salve?
Yeah, so that's just Vaseline,
Okay.
and it's a press. So it's just supposed to. I don't know what it's supposed to do. Uh, yeah, I never did that. I didn't get hit, so I've never had to do that. Actually, yeah.
Go
For
ahead,
headbutts,
but
they just put Vaseline over it and cover it up. Uh, and so it was the first day out of a 4-day tournament. It was the Olympic trials where I opened it up the last time. The worst one, it was like I fought Monday night. You fight Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you have to win every night. And I got a headbutt the last round of the fight, and I end up winning. And they stitched me up, and
where?
I'm like, they stitched me up. Oh, and in the back room, right there in the locker room.
Any
Yeah,
anything to like numb it or anything?
I don't know, probably.
Oh, oh my
It, yeah, that's the last of my. I want to. This is the Olympic trials. I get one shot at this every 4 years.
See,
So,
diva down over here. I'm like,
yo,
do you get a numbing cream? Okay, go ahead.
here's what I'm learning about myself. I have I have such a lack of empathy for myself when it comes to goals, where I suppress my feelings. I don't care. I don't care about pain. It's like destination driven. It makes it very difficult for me to have empathy for others.
Yes, we have had a conversation about explaining the risks to athletes, letting them know and allowing them to make that decision. But when we first had a conversation, you were like, they don't need to know all of that. They just need to get in there and fight. And, you spoke to some of that earlier in our conversation today, where you're like, yeah, yeah, but the risk is important because that also means reward. But from the medical side, I'm very much like, give these athletes the education so that they can be better informed and then plan their careers and make better decisions for themselves. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So I completely agree because they need the information. What they then do with the information is on them.
Yes.
I wish I would have had the information. I would have made the same decisions. But I just think I deserve to know the decisions, deserve to know the risks that I'm taking, because I don't think athletes can even, especially the younger ones, can conceive what that means. Also, if I'm honest, I don't care. Like, I got bills to pay, lady.
Yeah.
The last thing I could, so it wasn't, my health wasn't a priority for me now. But where I stand now, I would for sure explain to my child all of the risks, because a teenager, still a child. Uh, I'll explain to them the risk. But it's like, if this is what you want to do it. I'm not for stopping anyone from doing it.
Right.
I'm actually for them doing it, especially certain people. But I believe they should be informed and know the risk at hand. And actually, not even them know the risk. Their parents should know the risk. I don't know how you implement that because it's not their responsibility.
Right. Well, my goal is for everyone to be aware. I say, like, if you know an athlete, love an athlete, teach an athlete, then you should know so you can know the signs. But if you had been given extensive knowledge about the risks and CTE and all the things, do you think that would have changed how you would have boxed? Because I've spoken to some other athletes and they're like, well, I wouldn't even want to look at it until I was done and retired because they feel that would mess with their head and taking punches. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, ironically enough, and I just happened to get lucky. I was afraid to get hit like that. So I've always built my boxing career not taking shots. Like Mexicans, they're built different. They're like, these dudes, they'll get in there, they're built, they're just so tough. And they'll stand in the middle of the ring. It's like a pride deal where they both stand in the middle of the ring, and whoever takes a step back first is less of a man. I'm not built like that. Like, those Mexican warriors are built different. And I didn't have one of those boxing styles, and I'm so grateful I didn't because I'm not a naturally strong person. So I used the point system. So given the information I had, I would have boxed literally the same exact way. Uh, that's just coincidence, though.
Yeah.
I just happened to box in that way. Uh,
You're a very special case because
I'm,
not
I am,
everybody boxes the way that you do.
yeah. Don't do. Also, I don't tell people to do what I do. Like,
You could.
I could, but people don't listen. People listen when they want to, and they'll hear what they want to when they're listening.
You're right.
But what I would say for athletes is understand the risk, but also for the athletes who are in sports with concussions and stuff, here's a few questions. What do you want out of the sport? There's no wrong answer. You might just want girls. You might want attention. You might like working out. You might do it for fitness. You might want to be adored. You might just like to win. You might like to dominate. Whatever your reason is,
You might
why are
not
you
want to
boxing?
be beat up or
Might not
bullied.
want to be beat up. We all have different reasons, but you have to know your why. And then the second question is, what's it going to take for you to leave?
I love that question.
That could be maybe you make your goal weight. Maybe you reach that certain income. Maybe you win that championship belt. Maybe you get the confidence you always wanted. Maybe you just had those 10 fights you said you wanted to have under your belt. And my final question is, how do you know if you stay too long?
I love all of those questions. So valid, and it requires the athlete to really think, because a lot of athletes that I encounter are very much just like driven and in this tunnel vision. And these are not things that they consider. I love those questions.
Yeah. I see it as a tool. Like I have the shirt in there. It's like the boxing shirt we had, the Fort Pierce PAL, Police Athletic League, keeping kids out of prisons and in playgrounds. It was a program to keep people off, to keep kids out of trouble. You're supposed to use it to get out of, you're supposed to use sports to get out of your situation as like a tool. They don't say how you have to use it. I could have, in 2012, when I was broke and had nowhere to live, I could have just signed a contract for a 6-figure deal and turned pro. But the reason why I did it is, even though it was a nice carrot and it was right there, I understood that I'd be old by 35. And I would reach the arc of what I could make by 35. And by dedicating myself fully to my sport, I won't have any skills outside of that to do anything after 35. I wouldn't know about investing. I wouldn't know about real estate. I wouldn't know about my own taxes.
How did you know that you would be old by 35?
Oh, you look around at all. Weird story. My first time I went to nationals was 2007. I didn't win. It was a year after I started boxing. I didn't win, but I made it to the semifinals and I lost. The two guys who fought was Michael Hunter. He beat me. He got to the finals. He was 19. I was 19. And he wasn't that experienced, but he was young and he was driven. He was fighting Mike Wilson. Mike Wilson was 32 years old and had experience on his side, has fought international, all that. And I remember looking and thinking, oh, it's the battle of the young guy who's coming in with youth and enthusiasm, or the old guy who has wisdom and experience. Who's going to win? And I thought, oh, the one without a full-time job and kids. Yeah, the younger one who has more time to dedicate to the sport. When does Michael Wilson know he's too old? Mike Wilson lost that fight. And I thought at myself there, I'm going to be in that position eventually. And once that young buck beats me, I'm not going to let it happen more than once.
So what are your thoughts on the Tyson and Jake fight? Because you kind of just described that.
Oh, I did?
Mike Tyson, he just fought the young man.
Jake Paul.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, that one's even more of an extreme case that here's what I'll say. Mike Tyson should have died a long time ago with the life he was leading. The fact that we still have him, we should cherish him. Like the life he's lived, for him to still be alive and able to box at that age, how cool that he's able to still make, because I don't care about your sport. I care about athletes, and I care about the life they live and the income opportunities they have after they're done playing. Because when you put everything you have into sport, you got to try to squeeze every ounce out of that. Whether you go to school for you go to college for wrestling, cool. You're retired and you don't want to do MMA. What do? Maybe you're a wrestling coach. Maybe you have to be as creative as possible. Cheerleading, gymnastics, cool. After a certain age, what are you doing? And that's where you have to get creative. And I love. Maybe I'll do that one day as a career. I'm just busy right now, but love working with athletes and talking to athletes about how to position themselves for a life after sports.
That's
Because,
so needed.
yeah, they don't realize how irrelevant they become so quickly.
Yeah. I actually stopped cheering. I was going to cheer in college, and I decided not to because, one, the dedication that it requires of your time and your body and all of that. I was like, well, what am I going to be, a professional cheerleader after this? So I focused on school instead. But again, not everybody thinks about that. They don't consider
Mm.
those things. So I
Me-
think that that absolutely could be another career path for you. I'm all about a pivot. You've heard me say it during
Oh,
the interview,
oh
but
yeah.
I do want to get to the candid questionnaire if you're ready for that.
Ooh, I'm here for it.
Okay. All right. First question. What is one word that your friends would use to describe you?
You could guess.
Awesome.
Arrogant. No, no. I would say awesome. And I shared before, I don't know if we're on air yet, but Stephen Colbert. So the idea of awesome for me is like the embodiment of a certain attitude. And I took like in my mind when I decided I want to be awesome, I wanted to lead that, I want to become that person. And I use that by taking pieces of other characters I appreciated, even some fictional, and kind of carrying myself in that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Stephen Colbert's from the Colbert Report, the character he played on that show, if not me, would be the closest thing to Mr. Awesome.
Okay.
I don't really love his show now. It's real, but I like the comedy. I can't even judge it. I haven't watched it, uh, but I loved the Colbert Report.
Okay. Yes, we did have a conversation before we started recording because I told him that the Candid questionnaire is inspired by the Colbert questionnaire. And if you don't know what that is, you just YouTube one of Stephen Colbert's Colbert questionnaire videos, and he just asks 5 fun questions, and I love that idea. And so yeah, we're gonna move on to question 2. If you could instantly master any sport or physical skill, what would it be and why?
Pickpocketing.
What?
Yeah,
Why?
pickpocketing. Because you pretty much get anything you want. Uh, and if speaking doesn't work out, I'm riding the train, baby.
Oh my God. That is such an unexpected answer, but okay. Okay. Number 3, what's one activity or hobby that you find most relaxing or beneficial for your brain?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. Uh, Smoking weed on my balcony while I journal.
Okay. Relaxation at its finest.
Yeah,
With
it's
a little
like
therapy, the journalist, the
oh
journaling piece.
oh there's always a journal in arm's distance of me. I journal a lot, but it's like it's my solitude. It's where I find my peace, and I sit out on my balcony, my little coffee because I drink coffee now, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I journal. It's it's very relaxing, and then you get thoughts, and your thoughts meet other thoughts and have thought babies.
Yeah. Okay, I'm A type. So, do you have like a journal just randomly anywhere and you just write in any journal?
Oh, I've got two journals. One is my morning gratitude. I write a list of 10 things I'm grateful for every morning. Don't
Okay.
repeat anything on the list. That's this one. That's usually the one on hand. Then after those 10 things, I write 5 things, 5 my goals, and then I write my yearly mantra. This year it's all about abundance and all about abundance 2025. And then I write 2 or 3 sentences about how I'm feeling that morning or what I'm excited about. And every so often, I like to just open up to a random page and go back there. And some
Nice.
days it's not a good day.
And some
And you're
days
like,
you get to see where you've come from or what you have achieved.
and it's so important because think about all the times when you only reflect. It's easy to reflect when things are when things are bad, but when you're having a good day and you look in your journal, you see 3 weeks ago you were in a situation you never thought you'd get yourself out of, and look at you now.
Yeah, I do that with my goals, short term and long term. And then sometimes I'll go back and I'm like, oh, hey, I achieved that and this and
Yeah.
this. So I like that intention. I think I might start that.
Oh,
I've been journaling more this year.
I'm a big fan of journaling. Can we go back to another question since you're a doctor and I feel like I should ask this question? I was very hesitant to mention that I smoke weed on my balcony. Uh,
Yes.
Medically, what are
Yes.
your thoughts on that?
On,
Marijuana for the brain.
well, I do know that I haven't looked at research or articles specifically on it, but I do know that there is a former athlete who has dedicated his post-athlete life to um I don't know what you would call it, growing, curating, what have you, but just incorporating marijuana and pairing that with symptoms from his concussion. And so that is something that I would like to learn more about, see what studies have to say about it. But I haven't dove into that, so I can't speak to it too much. But I do, from just seeing other research that's been done on marijuana, seeing that there are medicinal benefits from it. I know that it's very taboo, but I am very much a think outside of the box type of a person. And so if there are benefits to it, I look forward to seeing what those are, since they've had benefits for other ailments like cancer and the symptoms and side effects of chemo and things like that.
Okay, I was just curious. And this is another example of I want to know the information and know the risk. Because if you said, hey, because you're the concussion doctor, if you're like, hey, definitely weed, especially after doing sports, that's a no-no. Then I know the risk. Now, if I decide to continue to smoke, that's on me. But
Yes.
I think it's important to know the risks that you're taking. So I'm always looking to know information. I'm not going to take advice from all the information I get, but it can't hurt to know.
Yes, but that's the goal of all of this. You hear the awareness, and then you take from it what you will. I'm not trying to force anybody or stop anybody. Just here's some information, do with it what you will. Um, yeah, free
I
will.
I'm sorry. I love that you're doing this, by the way. I love that you're so passionate about sharing this information with people. This is something I would have never thought of or considered doing. And I think it's important that these athletes know the risks that they're taking. And I think it's important, and I don't know how you can convey this to them, for the parents to understand the risks that they're putting on their children as well.
Yeah.
And once they know the risks, they can do what they want. And I'm a big fan of that last part, but I'm also a bigger fan of you getting to know all the information before you make your decision.
That's right. Yes. And I have been advised, like, let people know that you're an athlete, because people can hear like doctor and then you're talking about the brain. And the first thought is like, you're trying to stop us. Like, no, no,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to stop you at all. I just want you to not have to say, I wish I would have known. You even said it a little earlier, which is something that I, constantly hear is, oh man, like, I wish I would have known the risks. I wish, I wish. And so I'm like, well, and in your mind, you're like, somebody's gonna have to share this. Somebody. And just one day I was like, girl, somebody is you.
You is
So,
that somebody, Queen?
right, right. So it's like, this is passion that I've had for years. And so to be able to raise this awareness, there's a lot of work to be done, but I'm willing to do it. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Okay, last question. Nope, we've got two more. Okay, what is the weirdest or most unexpected item in your bag or car right now?
Ooh, uh, in my car right now, in my car is about 50 uh disc golf discs, uh a which it shouldn't be in there, uh a man, what's paddleboard. Yes, it's because you shouldn't leave it in there, but it's not that hot out. Uh,
Is it a
and
blow up or like,
yeah, I have an inflatable one, and I
okay.
have the pump in there as well. And I also have I have a volleyball, I have rackets, and I have a lawn chair. That's my trunk. It's completely full, and also I have a cart to bring groceries in and out of my apartment. And I share all of that to say, I haven't paddleboard, play tennis, volleyball, or use any of those things in over a year. But I'm keeping. Well, actually, I paddleboarded like in July, So,
Of
but
last year.
yeah, but
So
I have
when
it.
you just have them all like just in case
I,
there's a tennis
yo,
match.
if a tennis match breaks out, your boy is ready.
Oh, I mean, seriously, but do you play?
No, no.
Oh,
It was in my girlfriend's car, and I don't know why it's in my car now. And we played once like 2 years ago, and I've since moved, and I don't know. Yeah, there's a bunch of sports stuff. I just want to be active, and I was thinking about this. Uh, I want to be, I want to live a long life of like longevity and health. And I think that's why it's important what you're doing is because I want to cognitively be there as well. But mobility, flexibility, and like cognitive thinking, like that to me, the older I get, is starting to become more important. Where I did not care about any of those things like a decade ago. And now I'm like, oh, I want to be able to bend down to tie my shoes when I'm 70.
yeah. I have a strong feeling that you will. You'll be
Yeah.
able to do that.
I had this thought, like I wanted to get jacked, like my plan, like I thought I want to get jacked one day. I was gonna juice up and get jacked. But then I'm terrified of needles, so I don't think it would ever work out. Also, all of the side effects. I don't want my ball. I like the way everything on me works. Uh, and then I thought about it. If I put on a bunch of muscles, I see all those guys, their knees and ankles start to give out as they get older. And I'm planning for longevity.
Uh, well, I don't think that you need to get jacked. I mean, you're intimidating enough just with your size. You have nice muscles. Like, I think that you are a perfect specimen right now.
Thank you, my lady.
Yes. Okay, last question. What is your go-to guilty pleasure TV show, movie, or song?
Ooh, okay. Can I give you all three?
Yes.
Okay. TV show. Uh, it goes in and out, but right now, Broad City. Have you watched Broad City?
No.
Okay. It's not a dude show, by the way.
Okay, what is
Uh,
it about?
it's these two girlfriends, two best friends, two girls who live in New York City, and they're broke, and they're on all these adventures of trying to like find jobs and all this. But the writing on the show, like the small details they put, that's just these throwaway jokes that are gold that they don't make a big deal out of. I just appreciate good writing, and that show was well done. It's not like a popular too popular or anything, but
Where can
it's good.
people watch?
Hulu, I believe you can watch that on Hulu. Also, The League. If you not even if you like football or anything, but it's like a flag football. It's a fantasy football TV show. That one's pretty good. Eastbound and Down. Kenny Powers, love that. That was part of the personality bringing in. If you know Kenny
Okay.
Powers is, uh, yeah, I have a bunch of random shows. Music. Here's the thing I want to talk about music.
Okay.
Uh, when I walked to the gym I walked those 6 miles, right? Uh, I learned about internal dialogue. So when I listened to music, I would listen while I was boxing. I would only listen to specifically rap music, freestyles,
Rap music freeze. Okay.
because when a rapper's freestyling on a song, that's the only time in you're allowed to talk like it's I'm good looking, I'm rich, I'm successful, I'm the best. It's literally nonstop positive affirmations about how amazing you are.
You're right.
I am between like 2010, between 2007 and 2010. I was like a walking Lil Wayne mixtape. It was like all the things he would say about those were the things that was constantly in my head. I'm that guy. I'm him. And I think it's important to channel that because in moments of fatigue and getting close to defeat, you want to dig deep. And during those times, you only really hear you. So, what do you think about you?
Right. Love you. Gotta love yourself. That's where it
Yeah,
starts. So you can love
yeah,
others.
yeah.
Okay, movie.
And this is just my faves. Or okay,
Guilty pleasure movie.
guilty. Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. Okay,
Mm,
it's if you remember Step Brothers. It's not Will Ferrell, it's the other brother.
okay.
It's like a Johnny Cash remake movie. It's not very famous, But the lines, the quotable lines of that movie, it is so funny and so ridiculous. Uh,
Okay. I'll
yeah,
have to look at that one too.
yeah.
So that is a comedy then.
Oh, that's all I watch.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right for the guilty pleasure. Well, you
Yeah.
already answered my question about like what you would say to young athletes. You gave me those three questions, which are awesome. Is there anything else that you would say to young people who would want to get into boxing?
Not even just boxing. I'll say anyone who's looking to get into sports or is involved in the sport,
Yes.
it is a fraternity. I can go into any gym in the country and they don't have to know who I am. They don't have to know that I'm successful in boxing, but the fact if someone knows I'm a boxer, if they have a connection to that sport, I have an in with them already. Whether, especially in business or whatever it is. So whatever sport you're into, understand that is essentially a bonus on top of a college degree. Leverage it in that way and build relationships through your sports. Nothing's more important than it. Don't matter what you know, it's who you know.
That's right. Very true. What do you have coming up? Where can people find you? Please share.
You can find me on Craigslist Misconnection. No, I'm joking. I'm Cam F. Awesome on all social medias. Yeah, you can reach out to me. I'm a speaker. I'm 12-time national champion, heavyweight Olympic boxer. You heard the story. I travel to over 30 countries as captain of Team USA. So my job would find out the do's and don'ts about each country and relay the message to my teammates so we don't look like idiots in other countries. Through doing that for almost 15 years, I now learned a lot about cultural communication. So I speak about cultural communication in the workplace, as well as a keynote speaker on resilience and a positive internal dialogue. You can find me at camfawesome.com. Shoot me a message. The DMs are open.
Yes, and that is F as in Frank, Cam F.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. This was amazing. I don't think I've laughed this much in an interview. So thank you so much. And I'm sure you and I will talk soon.
Please, yes, let's stay in touch. I'm glad we were connected there, right?
Yes, Jared connected us, another boxer who
Yes.
has also been on the
No,
podcast.
so okay, I don't know. Another boxer that left sports and did something even better than his sport. I'll just drop it there. I love that about athletes.
Yes, Jared is amazing. If you haven't heard his story, he has been on the podcast as well. So give it a listen. His episode was awesome, just like yours has been.
Mm.
We will talk soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Kandid Konversations with Dr. Kelly. I hope today's discussion left you inspired, informed, and ready to take on your next challenge with a clearer mind. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep striving for a healthier mind and a happier life. I'm Dr. Kelly, and this has been another Kandid Konversation.